when I first got into agriculture, I was talking to a farmer, and he was like, "Oh, I run all green," and I was like, "Cool. I don't know what that means." And I just I nodded along because I was like, but the way he said it, it was like, as common as sort of the sky is blue, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, totally, right, green." Found out well after the fact he meant John Deere, right? And it was like, he just needed to get that information out there. It's like when you meet someone who does CrossFit, they're like, "Hi, I'm Trevor, and I do CrossFit." Yes, yeah. That's how they do it. It's "Hi, I'm Trevor, and I have John Deere equipment."
Welcome to Muttering Pines, the show where us city folk try to cowpoke. We drink beer, talk about ATVs, life outside the city, homesteading, entrepreneurship, and ultimately trying to do stuff with our hands.
Hey, boys.
Hi. Good to see you.
This is our first episode this year.
First episode back, and we have equipment now. This is no longer some Mickey Mouse shit.
I mean, does my voice sound real?
Yeah, it's still Mickey Mouse shit, but we just all probably sound similar because we've purchased what we should have done in the first place, which is microphones.
Who would have thought?
You'd think we would have figured out that microphones are integral to recording a podcast.
Instead of just spending the last 15 episodes talking into red Solo cups. Which I think is pretty much what happened.
Yeah,
that's true.
And after
back
the second,
any of those, we also need to learn how to talk
I
first.
just gave up editing sound. Fuck off. Already off to a good start.
Yeah.
But we do have a guest.
Right. So
we can
even though we did 15 episodes last year, people still want to come on this podcast.
Well, I think the key is they don't really do the research, do they?
That's true.
They were just bored when they said yes.
That's also possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we're kicking off this year with somebody who's in a field.
What's he do?
A reputable professional field.
No, that's not us.
Oh, no, I know it's not us. We're not the fucking guests.
No.
Okay. We should cut this episode. We can't have reputable people on here. It'll ruin things for them.
Thanks for listening to our first episode. 18 seconds long.
Well, tonight's guest is an old friend of mine. His name is Trevor Bacque, and he
is it or is it Bach?
Oh, well,
is Bacque?
We'll have to ask him and find out. I don't actually know because his company's called Back 40 Communications, but his last name's real French looking.
It would be really weird if
I always thought it was Bach.
If his last name wasn't Bacque, but his company name was Back 40. Let's go with Bacque.
That would be pretty weird.
What if it's Bacque?
Bacque?
Well, I hope it is.
Bacque 40. No,
because then I have
40.
At least a half dozen conversations about his
Glenn's not here yet. And you hear all this.
Well, yeah.
He'll find out later.
Trevor is a journalist, and he specializes in rural and agriculture, and he's written some pretty interesting stuff, and sort of interesting to us because we like equipment and outdoors and cattle and fields and grain and all of that sort of stuff. But he's out there actually interviewing people.
He's doing it for real. Not
doing it for real.
Talking to people who do it for real, not just us jamokes.
Yeah, but he's found really interesting people out there. Like the last story he wrote about Andy Clean, this Andy Clean guy is really interesting. And so I think I like Trevor's perspective on rural because it's not normal city redneck perspective on rural life like we have. Mm-hmm. Like he's actually out there in it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited that we have someone to kick it off with. I'm excited that it's somebody with actual knowledge. It's going to be good. And look at that. Just because he's a journalist, he's punctual, and he is here now. So this is fucking sweet.
Let's start apologizing to him right away.
Let's make him instantly regret his choices.
Sorry?
This is a guest where my asking him involved the phrase, "I don't know if you remember me, but," and so that's the kind of guest we have with Trevor. I don't know if you remember me, but.
I feel like actually, Scott, you have like more color in your beard since I saw you last. I feel like you were all white, and now you're like going back in time or something.
Yeah,
Going
it's just
Benjamin
spilled
Button?
coffee.
Yeah,
It's fucking coffee stains. It's white as snow.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm just dirty.
It's just the nicotine. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, you know what? That's funny. The last time you saw me, I still smoked. I don't smoke anymore.
Oh, okay. How long
Yeah.
have you been off the?
So-
That's
off
what
the
cancer
cigs?
recession looks like right there. Is
Yeah.
the beard come back?
He's coming back.
Comes back color. Yeah, you lose all your hair, but it comes back color. It's amazing. So this is a good way for us to figure out how long ago it was that you and I saw each other, because we saw each other at
It was that
Lucas's house.
that Sled Island thing, which
Right.
2018.
Right. Okay. So that and I definitely still smoke then. So yeah. Wow.
There you
yeah.
go.
So that's how long it's been since we saw each other.
Congratulations.
I was telling these guys a story about you before you came on.
Oh, boy.
And I don't know if you remember this, but you and me and some of our mutual friends were out in Okotoks at
God.
at a party. Or was it Okotoks? No, maybe it wasn't Okotoks. It was a different time. Anyway,
It
it doesn't
depends
matter.
what you say.
Yeah, you gave me a lift home, and you had just bought this car from somebody like that. Either your family knew or something. It was like an Oldsmobile, and it was old. It was like the most vintage, but it was like it had never been driven. Like it was mint condition.
Yes, that's one of the saddest. That was my favorite car, and I had it for 4 months.
What?
It was a 1988.
You're hard on cars.
I had a Dodge Shadow for 10 years, and it's like the cooler cousin of the Dodge Shadow, but I can't remember what it's called. Anyways, my old neighbor, his hobby was buying cheap cars, or like buying them from auction, fixing them up, and then just like giving them to people. And he
That's
was
quite the hobby.
He was the nicest guy ever. And so he sold me that car, Scott, for $1.
That's what it was.
He was like,
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, because my other car had just died. And anyways, but yeah, 4 months later, that thing got stolen right out of my driveway.
By him.
Yeah.
Because he sold it to you for $1, and it was
He's
amazing.
like, wait a minute. Thought I had a couple more zeros on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, Matt,
Yeah.
didn't you have an 80-something Oldsmobile?
It was a 86 old Cutlass Supreme, I think, and I had it for
Nice.
like 3 months. Yeah.
Also
God, what did-
stolen.
No, it was such a piece of shit. It just went away.
Just disappeared from under you while driving?
Yeah, it was basically I couldn't register it. It needed to just leave. So yeah, it was $300
Well-
out the door.
I remember you
We're-
tried to twist a few on my street and ended up on the neighbor's lawn, and they like looked out, like up from the dinner table out the big bay window, and we're like, Matt's Oldsmobile was like 3/4 up their lawn, and it was like a graded lawn, and it was like, fuck.
Yeah, well, they never came out to say anything, so we just left. Or we just
pretty
left
quick.
in a hurry. But yeah, the family was staring at us through their front window as we're backing off their lawn.
Yeah,
We've all been there.
we were young. It was weeks ago.
Yeah.
Trevor, I don't know if you did yourself the disservice of listening to any of our other episodes before you climbed on here. But we
I spent
usually-
a few minutes, yeah.
Right on. We usually start off, and I heard the little right before we hit record. We usually start off with a little cheers and just tell everyone and nobody. We tell nobody what we're drinking tonight. So you may start.
Guys,
Oh.
can
Canada
you see
Dry.
this? Remember how my immense head cold, my 500-pound head? Yes, this is my medicine. So
You know what? Scott was drinking ginger ale and he didn't have a head cold. So
That's usually what I drink, yeah.
Yeah.
there you go.
Tonight I have something different. Tonight I
there's
brought,
nothing wrong with that if you have a head cold,
yeah.
Scott.
And drugs. Are you also doing drugs?
I may have to later to get through
Excellent.
the night. We'll see.
Yeah, you should. That's how I feel.
Ibuprofen
every
is
day.
still a drug.
Yeah.
Far
pill.
pills for me today. Yeah.
Yokin.
Attaboy.
I got the old standard PBRs because they're cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of cheap, I've upgraded or side graded, I like to call it. You know what I got going on today, boys? PC Pilsner.
Delicious. I don't care who you are.
I was talking to a guy at work about that. He's like, actually, they're really good.
Yeah, and you know what, Hayden? They're better than the co-op ones you recommended.
You're still mad about this Co-op Gold lager not being as good as our friend let on. And I think maybe
He
we
owned
need
the
to talk
brewery,
about it.
and he said
Yeah,
it was
that's
good,
true. You're
and
right.
they tasted
You're right.
like feet. You tasted them.
That's Tool Shed brews those ones, I believe.
Oh, do they?
They
No
brew them
offense,
on
Tool Shed.
contract for them. Which isn't to say anything of Tool Shed's beer quality because it's a little
Now
higher
we
than
have-
that. But
2 different brands of beer we won't be having on this show. Take that, Tool Shed. I'm sure this will be devastating to their sales.
Devastating. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were having a bit of a debate, and this ties in with what Scott said earlier about how his reaching out to you was like, I don't know if you remember me,
But
but okay. Usually we like to do a little bit of research.
yep.
Oh, he went away.
we lost Darren. I think. Oh, he's back.
Why did you go? No, you
Oh
left.
God, but your sound is all buggered now.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Can you not hear me?
Your
No,
microphone
we
cut
can
out.
hear you, but you're on the other. You're on your lousy mic now.
No.
Sounds like you're underwater.
Yeah.
It does. That's right. He's got the
This
head
is
cold
a
now,
highly
motherfucker.
produced show as well, so
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So, Trevor, the other reason, I mean, besides the fact that you're just generally an interesting and funny guy, the other reason we wanted to have you on was to talk about what you're doing for work now. So you have a company, it's called, and this was the debate earlier, I think Darren was about to bring up.
I can't wait.
It's Back 40 Communications, but your last name is Bacque, right?
Well, you know, it is spelled Bacque. So, I mean, I've heard just about every, interpretation of this under the sun, but I've been told since I was a boy it's back, like front to back.
Okay.
So,
Okay. All right. 10 days ago, I was in Manitoba
Yeah.
visiting some family for the first time in a long time. And in this part of Manitoba, there are a ton of Métis last names, Métis surnames, and none of them get pronounced the French way. Like, this is why I call Bombardier Bombardier. I realize now. Like, I went to visit a friend of my father's, and his last name, they say it Cuvelier, but it's definitely Cuvelier. And so, yeah, so you're back 40.
I'm back 40. I hope you get the play on words there. Some people dig it. Some people are like, that's a stupid business name.
It's not a stupid business name.
No, that's what I think. That was why I went in. So yeah, what can I tell you? I'm an agricultural consultant, media. Like, my background is journalism, communications, the media biz, and so I've been playing in the big sandbox of agriculture now for, this is my 11th year specifically in agriculture, and I've been consulting on my own now for about 5.5, and see no reason to climb out of the rabbit hole yet.
Yeah. I've been enjoying the articles you've been writing about some of the folks like out, doing work in rural areas right now. Like the Andy Clean one that you did recently was really interesting. And so, like, you went to school to be a journalist. What made you decide that you were going to go and work and write out there? Because I can, from experience working in advertising, rural communities are the least researched, least considered audiences that roll across our desks. Like, I've never really seen a good study of rural communities in North America for any sort of media purpose ever. in 20 years working in digital marketing. And so when I saw you doing this, it was really interesting to me, because I think what we tend to do in our line of work is we take city people and we slow down their internet and say that's rural. But I don't think that's right. And so I want to hear from you what you think it's like, and like what you've been seeing.
Oh man, I think you asked like 32 questions there.
Yeah. Darren will edit it down to one, and you're going to sound super smart after, so don't worry about it.
I'll just wax poetic and you just interject. So I mean, when I graduated from school, believe me, if you would have told me this would be my life right now, I would have laughed or gagged or both, because it just sounded ridiculous, right? Like I'm a city kid. Like I'm from Calgary. My grandma is from a farm, and that's about it, right? And she moved off the farm before I was born, so I've got no connection to rural communities. But I started working at a rural newspaper because jobs are hard to find when I got out of school, and I had to write a few articles here and there about farming, which I actually hated. I didn't understand it. It didn't make any sense. Farmers seemed like weird people. I didn't know what I didn't know, And fast forward one day, just tired of making no money at my newspaper, and so took a random job at an agriculture company. And my mindset was, and literally anything is better than working, for my boss right now. So pulled the chute and came to this agriculture company. And believe me, if I thought I was out of my element at the newspaper, it's like, all you guys talk about is farming, like, holy crap. But then it just sort of became very interesting, right? Like I'm just a curious guy. And so when I hear 500 new terms being thrown at me, I just pull out the dictionary and start researching these words and kind of figuring out what it was. And really, it is sort of that illustration of like just going down the rabbit hole. And I lost daylight a long time ago. But it's fascinating. Scott, aren't you from a farm? Weren't you? Or a rural community?
I am, yeah. Well, I'm from a small town. I have a lot of family that are like in rural communities that work in ag. They have many thousands of acres that they manage. So So I get it through family channels that way. But I by no means do I know anything about it. Like it all seems like space to me. Like it's the technology in that industry is second only to spacefaring things totally. Like NASA. It's unbelievable.
And Darren and Matt, are you guys from farms?
So I grew up on a farm, and I live in the city full time. But when I was younger, I work on the family farm and stuff. But not so much farming as ranching. But we did silage and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And did you, Darren?
Our equipment was all garbage. So.
No, I did not grow up on a farm. I grew up in the city. I have a lot of relatives that I don't know that are all farmers around Calgary, Alberta. But only recently in my advanced age have I started getting extremely interested in ranching and agriculture and just not being in the fucking city anymore.
Well, yeah. And like, this is just my point. Like like I said, I didn't grow up on a farm or anywhere near a farm. But then it's like, once you get out there, just in the middle of the sticks, you're like, wow, this is so awesome.
Says no farmer's kid ever.
Yes, this is the thing. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just did a story this week about first generation farmers, like people who are not from farming backgrounds who got into farming. And it's so interesting because most of the people I talk to are farmers who, they're in the fourth or fifth generation of a family farm, right? And then you're talking to these people who are like, I grew up in Vancouver and I hated it, so now I'm a bison farmer, right? And it's like just so interesting to hear people's perspective, because I think that's the thing. You get anybody outside the city and you just show them wide open space, and it's like, wow, this
You don't-
is so rad.
As a farm kid, I assume you probably don't know what you have until you don't have it, right?
I think so.
And
Yeah.
also bison farming, like coming from
Wow.
Vancouver, like, oh, what's the hardest fucking, like, what's the most expensive animal I could put on my land? Oh, bison. Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, but
I'm from-
experience.
I'm from Vancouver, so I'm rich. It's no big deal.
Yeah. What kind
Yeah,
of fence do you need for that? All of it? Like the biggest?
Half as lethal as any one homeless person on East Hastings. So,
And twice as alive.
oh,
Even when you eat them.
oh, terrible.
I have some kids that are growing up in my family that have the option to stay on the farm, and they are just leaving as quick as possible. They're going to town. They're doing other things. And I just think it's so opposite, where if you lived in the city and do shit like we do, you see that lifestyle and it's, no, I even if your life is shit out there, it's better than here. And it's always greener, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that's it. But Trevor crossed the fence, and it looks like he was correct, and we were all wrong. So there's that.
But you
Well,
live in the country now, Trevor, or
You live in the country too, right?
No, I don't.
Oh, I thought you did. Oh,
no.
okay.
Boy, would that be nice. Me and the
Cities
family.
suck.
Yeah, yeah. As I still gladly have a Calgary postal code. Yeah, we still live in the city, and but I feel like I'm halfway there because my work is rural. So really, I just need to take that next step, and then I'll be golden. Get Starlink, and then no more
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah, that's a huge service where Starlink is now putting those rural properties on high speed, an actual usable high speed.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see farmers all the time posting their speed tests from, their ExploreNet, which is like the equivalent of like roasting a marshmallow with a rock in the Stone Ages. And then they show their speed test from Starlink, and it's like better than mine in the middle of the city. Like, it's unbelievable.
Well,
Yeah,
first of all, the speed test completed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Give
yeah,
it on ExploreNet.
totally.
They're
Way
still
faster.
running it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's go ahead.
I have a friend that has Starlink outside of town, just outside of Airdrie, and his job is like heavy duty internet use, even compared to the rest of us, and it is flawless for him. I'm surprised how good it is right out of the box, but from what I've heard anyway.
Well, and a big thing for farmers is that, and this probably won't be news to you guys, but it would be for maybe other city folks who don't know ag, is like the machines that these farmers use, like they're computers, but they have 4 big wheels. Like really, they're just moving computers. And the some of the software updates you have to do, like good luck doing that on your internet connection out there, right? Like, it's a huge issue. So I honestly think things like Starlink, I mean, there wouldn't be any price some farmers wouldn't pay because it's actually letting them work again.
Can we talk a little bit about that, Trevor? Because this is my experience, like with family and like the couple of times that I've worked in ag in my career. And this is another reason we wanted to have you on the show. Equipment is what we talk about, right? Like, it is which machine does what, how many horsepower, does it have the right optics? Like, the equipment is a way of life out there. People get like logos on their headstones when they die.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that experience for you, because there's a lot of jargon in that space, but it's addicting to talk about. Like the way we talk about quads and stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, brand loyalty, like, man, people in the city are so fickle compared to people. I mean, if you want to make a very sweeping statement, like people in rural communities, like they have their brands, especially when it comes to machinery, and like the price tag, kind of irrelevant to some people because it's like, I'm a John Deere guy, I'm a Case guy, I'm a New Holland guy, whatever, right? And it's like you don't want to switch over because lots of machines also don't communicate with other machines. So it's also a bit of like, well, if I switched over all my equipment, that might cost me like $3 million.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of pot committed a bit, you know?
Totally. Right.
But it is incredible how the loyalty to companies runs, how deep it runs. Even if sometimes people might not even love the product, it's one of those things where it's just like, well, it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very interesting for sure.
Would you say it even exceeds that of like the Ford, Chevy, Dodge loyalty rivalry?
It is completely on par with that, right?
It is, yeah.
Like, I mean, it's the way like every 20-year-old has to have like the newest iPhone. It's like, and you know, that actually probably is a pretty serious brand loyalty. But yeah, same. It's like they would, you know, they might not even get into their neighbor's Chevy truck because they're, you know, they drive Dodges, right? Like whatever.
Well,
yeah,
I'm not going to that farm. That's an orange farm.
Totally.
We don't fuck with orange in our family.
When I first got into agriculture, I was talking to a farmer and he was like, "Oh, I run all green," and I was like, "Cool. I don't know what that means." And I just like I nodded along because I was like, I can't
grass?
look.
Are you farming grass?
Yeah.
What?
But the way he said it, it was like, you know, as common as like sort of the sky is blue. And I was just like, oh yeah, totally. Right. Green. Love it.
Yeah.
My favorite color too. And then found out well after the fact he meant John Deere. Right. And it was like, he just needed to like get that information out there. It's like when you meet someone who does CrossFit, they're like, "Hi, I'm Trevor, and I do CrossFit." Like,
yes, yeah.
That's how they do. It's like, "Hi, I'm Trevor, and I have John Deere equipment." You know?
Yeah. I have family that when they drive past a field, if there's equipment operating and it's not John Deere, they'll say, "Oh, those tractors are the wrong color." That's their way of showing their disapproval. All those tractors are the wrong color.
Why? Because those people can afford them?
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
They're just financing it. They're not affording it. The brand new John Deere's newest combine is called the X9, and it's $1 million.
Right. And,
you'll make that back, no problem.
Well, why shouldn't it be $1 million, right? Like, considering what it's capable of.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable though. I think don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's the most expensive combine you can buy. Like it's a mill.
Yeah, and they're still probably unavailable for back orders.
Yeah,
like they're just sold.
So do you know, like offhand, just to get a little nerdy, why it's $1 million? Like what makes it $1 million?
John Deere. It kind of like Apple, where it's like because we have the little apple on it, we can charge you 50% more for this same device, right? I really do think of all the agricultural brands, John Deere has that cachet, and people will pay for it.
Right.
I mean, it's an amazing machine. It's got such an incredible amount of power and capability, just what it can do for you at harvest. Like, it is a truly amazing machine, but some of the prices are a little kooky, I must admit. But to your point, Darren, like, you do make it back, but it's certainly like, you know, you still got to have some amount of money to even get your foot in the door just to say I'm in debt because of this machine, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
That you mentioned like people moving from Vancouver to do bison farming or something like that, and we've seen, you know, like there's YouTube channels about people that move to the country and do that kind of stuff. But like the price of entry for farming, for real farming, like where you're going to produce and drag stuff by the bushel to the elevator and sell it and get it graded and all that stuff. Like the price of entry to that is way more than most people could bear.
It's almost impossible to even talk, like, you know, farms aren't for sale. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and for the most part, they don't. If someone was going to sell a farm, it doesn't make like a real estate website. It's like, you know, Matt, if you're my neighbor, I just call you and I'm like, hey, I'm thinking of cashing out. Do you want to buy my land?
Yes.
And you just say yes. Or if you don't, I just go to Darren and then Scott.
Yes.
Like, eventually someone will get it, right?
Right.
But it's, like the to say it's a barrier to entry is an understatement, right? Like if you think about what you would need, even if you bought all used equipment, you bought a decent used tractor, a combine, even if you started sharing equipment like a sprayer, different things like that, you're already into it for $1 million, like immediately, if not more. And then the input costs, like, I don't know if you guys have been following how crazy fertilizer prices are.
We've
been, and we've talked about it, but we don't really like. Yeah, we've heard about it from people in the areas where we own property, but we don't really know that much about it. Maybe you can talk about that a bit because
it's unbelievable. I mean, it's your most expensive input, right? If you don't have fertilizer, not much is going to happen. A couple of years ago, fertilizer in Western Canada, urea fertilizer, like $400 a ton ish, somewhere in there, $400 to $500 a ton. This past year, it was triple that. Like it got to, I think the highest I remember seeing was over $1,300 a ton.
Fucking hell.
Wow.
So like, I was talking with a farmer, a friend of mine. She farms up by Bonnyville, and so her fertilizer bill last year was $350,000 for her sort of regular, and she, like a regular size farm, like about 5,000 acres. $350,000 for the fertilizer. The next year, after the prices went crazy, her fertilizer bill was $700,000.
So it just doubled in a year.
It just doubled. And so she actually had to essentially order a slightly lower quality fertilizer because it was like exceeding her budget.
And what was she growing that year?
Nothing out of the ordinary. Canola, wheat.
Was the price of the crop that year double what it was the year before? If she was selling canola by the bushel?
Some of the commodity prices have gone to all-time highs, but they weren't necessarily at all-time highs when people were having to buy their inputs for the following crop year.
Right.
And so, you can really go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole of, commodity prices and input prices and how those sort of rise and fall with each other and stuff. But I mean, the fact is,
wait, Trevor, I don't know about this at all. There's conspiracy-minded shit around this. What is that about?
In rural Alberta? I don't believe it.
No, there's no conspiracies in rural Alberta.
Really, just the idea that I don't know what you're talking about either. Really, just the idea that the companies that sell inputs to the farmers, like they're obviously aware of what commodity prices are, and so they just, it's like, what's that highest like level I can get to without you not
going
buying
over
this? Right.
Right. Price is right pricing theory.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's, it's interesting that commodity prices are at all-time highs for farmers, which should be good news. But then you also realize certain inputs are also at all-time highs as well, coincidentally. And it's like, well, farmers, I've talked to farmers who are upset because it's just like the feeling of like, I can never get ahead. Because canola was over $20 a bushel, more than that actually. I think it passed 25. But then all of a sudden it's like, a bag of canola seeds $1,000. Like it's, it's unbelievable what it costs to even grow the stinking crop in the first place. Like the amount of risk that farmers shoulder, like it makes me ill sometimes talking and interviewing these men and women, because I'm like, it's nothing we don't know, but you really think about it and you're like, okay, so you just like went 700,000 in the hole, like buying all your inputs this year, or maybe like well over $1 million in the hole for your seed and your fertilizer and chemicals and things like that. And then you hope you produce a good crop, and then
and you get a yield to match. Yeah.
And you hope that the market is good, and you hope that the Canadian government hasn't flubbed internationally, and China hasn't shut down its borders to canola exports like we saw recently in the last 18 months, like things like that, where it's like, hey, great, we have a crop. oh shoot, we arrested the Huawei CFO, so now China's not going to buy our canola.
Right.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Now what do? I've got millions of bushels of canola. Oh boy.
Maybe living in the city isn't so bad.
Those dead bodies are starting to look a lot less right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes
it's still familiar though, eh, Matt? Like you just said, things don't go right, and you end up with like 800 pounds of honey.
Yeah, I don't know what happens. Just it was a bad year.
Yeah.
It does feel a bit rigged, though, doesn't it, Trevor? Like it just the way you describe it, like conspiracy or not, you just like any person who can use functioning logic, so probably just you on this call, is like, yeah, that doesn't add up.
True.
Yeah, and people have hot takes in rural communities about how to market your grain properly and this and that and stuff. But
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people are content to just grow it and drag it to the elevator and do it that way. You have to have the economies of scale of a farm if you want to really start having marketing autonomy. And a part of that is having enough storage on your farm, right? Because if you don't have enough storage, you pretty much are at the mercy of the grain company. You have to be a price taker. So that's been a recent kind of revelation, is that farmers are slowly but surely building up more on-farm storage capacity, because you can store the grain for years on your farm.
Yeah.
And if you have that ability, you can then wait for a good price, as opposed to, oh, shoot, I literally ran out of space at my farm. I have to sell it for whatever the price is today.
Yeah.
If you have the money and that, your farm's a certain size and scale, you're growing whatever crops, you sort of have projections of your yields, right? You're going to know, unless it gets hailed out, okay, I'll probably get X number of bushels, combined. Do I have the storage space for that? And then you sort of just math it out, like, well, is it better for me to just sell it off the combine, so to say? Or is it better to actually take the hit and invest in these bins and, start slowly buying it back, right? It's like, think about it like the way, should I put a solar panel on my house? Like, what's the buyback on this? Eventually it's going to work in my favor, but how many years, that kind of, it's no different kind of than that idea. But I think in the long run, if you have the ability to sit on something and say, no, I'm not going to sell it for this price, I'd be a fool to do that. I think anytime you can be in the driver's seat making those kind of decisions, that's when you meet a farmer who's profitable. You don't meet too many broke farmers. You just meet farmers who are profitable. Like, the farmers who are broke just go away. That's kind of the reality, right? You just, unless you got, a hobby farm, right? That's you sort of just have to reduce yourself to that level, I think.
So are you saying, like, it's not realistic for me to move from Vancouver and start a hobby canola farm? On like 13 acres of canola field. I'm going to strike it rich in Alberta.
Planted by hand.
Planted with my
16
donkey.
bushel yield.
Yeah. I think you would do that, like, that's almost like for love of the game territory. Do you know what I mean? If you want, and like, people do that. I think of the folks out at Eau Claire Distillery in Turner Valley. Like, they make all these fantastic spirits and stuff. They grow their barley and they harvest it with a horse. Like, they do. It's small on purpose, right? Like, it's a niche thing. And
Can you
it's
hook
all
us up
about,
with those guys? I want to talk to them.
I just might be able to. They're awesome guys, and they invite everyone out for a community harvest. But it's like, it's a completely different feel, right? Like, it's not a commercial farm.
This interview only took 25 minutes to pay off. Jackpot. Sorry. No, so you, like, for the love of the game, like, you're doing it just to stifle your Yellowstone erection, hey?
Yeah.
I'm gonna come out here and get a little bit of canola and 6 bison and
live off the lands. Yeah, totally.
Just Kevin Costner.
Got a couple questions for you.
Yes.
And they're vastly different. So I'm going to pick one, and hopefully I don't lose the other one due to my increasing intake of alcohol in advanced age. Where do I want to start? See, I've already forgotten one.
Advanced age, check.
Where am I? What
alcohol check too.
when you were talking about like barrier to entry being high and all that kind of stuff, have you? And coincidentally, I believe we're recording this on the actual drop date of season 2 for this show. Have you seen Clarkson's Farm?
I've seen some clips on YouTube. Like, I haven't watched the entire season or anything like that, but I've seen some clips, and I follow his tweets, and I see the hijinks he gets up to.
Yeah. So I was just okay. I'm going to ask it anyway, even though I haven't seen it. But the point was I was looking to hopefully get your take on, like, obviously there's stuff in there for, making a good show. But, like, he's got his, not his landman, but like his agricultural manager, like his bookkeeper. But he's doing things like starting from scratch with, like, goats and planting, and he has to buy secondhand equipment, and he bought a fucking Lamborghini tractor, like at what point is that, like, just being grossly over budget for the show versus, like, no, that's pretty much kind of like what you got to do when you're farming. Like, you get, if you're a newbie, you get half into it and you're like, oh, fuck, I need a, I don't know, whatever machine. And then you got to go spend like $100K that you weren't thinking of. And at the end, you've made $1 an hour or less.
Yeah, honestly, I mean,
like, that $1 million, you could have just gone and fucking got a Tim Hortons franchise.
High interest savings account.
Just be swimming in coin, other than making
doubles.
Swimming in doubles.
I think, like, there's probably some stuff in there that's kind of like made for TV. And, Clarkson would be an exception because he already has money. So, like...
Well, yeah, like the last thing he said on the first season, he's like, what do the real farmers do? Because I think they came out like you made like 100 pounds profit. And
right.
He's like, so what do actual farmers who don't have like Amazon film crews and who wants to be a millionaire to top up their bank accounts? Because it sounded like a lot of it they were using, and this is in the UK obviously, but they were using government grants to get a bunch of stuff back and subsidies and incentives. And obviously with, the way things go, like, those can either increase or probably decrease as years go on. Yeah. So, like, is that something Canada farming people? There goes the English as I'm talking to the journalist.
I think I know what you're getting at, and like, really, like,
thanks.
I've talked to people who want to get into farming, and they go to a bank, and they're like, "Hey, I need," they ask for whatever, probably $500,000, $1 million, who knows. And the bank's like, what's your plan? And they're like, I'm going to go farming. And they're like, this meeting is over. And because it's like, you have no experience farming. We're going to take all the risk. And you're just hoping it's awesome. Like, I've talked to enough farmers, and they tell me they just get laughed out of the room. And it's like, no, why would we ever go into business with you? You poor soul, So a lot of people who want to get into farming, they come into it cash rich.
Yeah.
Because they have no other choice. Because it's like, oh, I need to get a tractor for this farm that I want to do. And it's like, again, a bank might say no. So then you have to have the money to buy the tractor, like, from someone secondhand or at auction or whatever. But you pretty much have to buy it. Like, you got to have the $40,000 or whatever it might cost, right? Like, so you got to have a lot of cash on hand.
And probably pay a few people to work for you that know what the fuck they're doing.
You would like that, but most of the people I've spoken to, they can't even afford to hire someone minimum wage to do grunt work. Like, really? And that's just the reality, is that you, as you kind of said, you work so many hours, and if you do the math, it's embarrassing because you're probably making like $1 an hour. But you get to say, hey, I'm farming. right?
Yeah.
And that's just the reality. The people who I've spoken to who didn't come from farming and got into farming, it is 100% a labor of love. Like, you know, they're not tracking their hours on a spreadsheet because, one, that's depressing. And two, it's like, I've got, you know, they're looking at it.
Job that's depressing.
Yeah. But they're like, I've got a 20-year plan. I've got a 30-year plan. Like, this isn't something I'm looking for like a 3-year payback on, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, the off-farm jobs are a reality for lots of, even people who have been in, like, they've essentially been, the farm's been passed down to them. They bought out their parents or whatever. Lots of those people I talk to that would be like in their 60s, they have off-farm jobs. They've had off-farm jobs their whole career. Mm-hmm. And they have a job where their employer understands that, okay, when I got to put the crop in, like, I'm not really going to be around. Okay, that's fine. You know, we'll see you in a month. And, you know, they've got these periods. And often they work for agriculture companies because agricultural companies understand how the farming game works, right? But it's really tough sometimes to shed the off-farm job and make that leap full-time, right? It's the chicken and egg. It's like, okay, I need to work the off-farm job so I can afford the farm. But I have to farm in order to make the farm work and be profitable. But, shoot, I have to work my job because I need the farm to be, you know, it's like this never-ending cycle. So
Catch 22.
It's really tough. Like,
it's Richard. It's a friend of the three of us that lives up by the properties that Darren and I own. Richard's 77 years old, keeps cattle, and every day I guess he leaves it around 5 because he does his chores between like 4 and 5 or 3:30 and 5. And then he drives from Winfield, Alberta to Rocky Mountain House, and then he operates a crane in a place that makes laminated like beams and floor joists and stuff like that. And he drives all the way home and does his nighttime chores. And he goes to bed and he does that all over again every single day. And he's 77.
Yeah.
And he's lived out there by himself for 25 years. His daughter's grown up and moved out now.
And I bet he absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
Loves it so much that one time he had to get hip surgery. And he was like, hey, my hip's not working. And the doctor was like, okay, well, we'll give you a new hip. And you come back in a couple of months, we'll give you a second new hip because you need two new hips.
It was years. It was like probably 5 years you'll have to do the other one.
Yeah. And he was like, no. Nope. You do them both. And they're like, we never do them both. He's like, if you don't do them both, my cattle will die. And they were like, okay, we're going to do them both.
Like, I'm not missing that much work over that many years.
Oh, man.
Like, that's cowboy shit right there.
Yeah. He's an incredible guy. Like, sometimes I'll be working away and I'll be like, this sucks. And then I'll think about Richard's life and I'm like, I better get back to work.
Yeah.
Hey, your keyboard's pretty easy.
That little story kind of segues into my second question, which I didn't forget. Winning.
Yeah, you did. You just misplaced it.
Well, I have now. So, like, we've been talking a lot about farming and you know, grain and canola and combines and all that. And you're an agriculture journalist. At what point, like, do you cross over, or is there a crossover or a differentiation between farming commodity versus, like, running cows? Or is there that differentiation?
There totally is. And I'll say up front, I don't do a ton on the cattle and just livestock side in general, but I guess I know enough to be dangerous. The livestock side of the business is brutal. Like, it makes everything we just talked about, with whether you're talking about a grain farm, you know, taking on millions in debt, starting a farm from scratch, it makes all that look like a cakewalk. Like, every single livestock producer I've talked to, whether it's like pigs or chickens or cows, it is just the absolute definition of a grind. And the margins are razor thin. Like, you're just calculating it down to the cents. Like, what's the price per pound this week for beef? Like, things like that. It is absolutely crazy, the balls you have to go into livestock. And especially because you think about the time that we're in now, where plant-based everything is being pushed hard. And I'm not slamming plant-based, but plant-based means you're not eating meat-based, kind of, right? Like that.
Yeah.
You can
kind
do
of
both.
that's probably the definition.
And so you think about even that, right? Like there's big forces at play that are promoting plant-based diet and lifestyle more than eating red meat. And you have to contend with that in addition to just the fact that it's so stinking expensive to raise these animals. Like, I'll give you an example. I mean, was it 2021 when the heat dome, remember? And like everyone basically just died because it was like 40 degrees for a month.
In the city, it was great. It was no problem.
Well, Matt,
nothing bad happened.
That was when like south, right? Like Vulcan, like where your dad was. Like they had no crops. It was just like
it cooked them right off. Yep.
But so that caused a feed supply shortage because down south it's lovingly referred to as Feedlot Alley because that's where most of the cows are in Alberta, and Canada has the largest cow herd. Alberta has the largest cow herd in Canada. And so the feeders, the cattle feeders, they obviously have to buy the feed. And barley more than doubled in price. So you think about what your bill might be. You got to buy barley, maybe it's $4, $4.25 a bushel. All of a sudden, it's $9 a bushel. So your cost of doing business in like a 6-week span more than increased by 100%. Like, imagine if your mortgage payment went up 110% the next month, and then it was like at that rate indefinitely. Right? Like,
that's just what it was.
This is the new normal.
And it's like, it's like
you'd be buying a bison farm.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's like your friend. It's like, if you don't do this, like the cattle die. If I don't buy this food, the feed, the cattle dies. You have no choice, right? So it's just unbelievable the gumption you have to go into livestock. So like, yes, it is all agriculture because it's not like, I mean, livestock producers also grow their own feedstocks and silage and whatever else. But then they also have to buy it. Like it's all interconnected, but livestock is so different. It's unbelievable.
Well, actually, a friend of ours she was actually a realtor for both Scott and I.
Yeah.
Talking to her, and they run about 200 head normally. And they have their, just like you said, they plant and harvest their own hay for the herd. And she said this year, because I asked her, I called her up and I was like, hey, like when it got really fucking cold, I was like, all right, you guys surviving the cold and everything? She's like, we got our cows off to auction. I'm like, that's weird. Like, you normally don't put them to auction in beginning of winter or late fall. Like that's like a, springtime thing. And she's like, yeah. She's like, so the cost of our fertilizer went up $13,000. And she said something, I'm going to get the number wrong, but it was a ridiculous amount, like $700 to $900 a day to keep the herd over winter. Or they just fucking auction them off early. And she's like, we'll just buy new. They kept like 20 heifers, and she's like, we'll just buy new pairs in the spring. And I'm like, that's not economical. Like, so because the cost of fertilizer, which you already brought up earlier, has gone up, they basically had to sell, I'm assuming, her cows for probably maybe not half the price but she would have got, but damn close, because
you're certainly not getting the price you would want.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, exactly. You're not getting their full weight at auction in spring.
No, it's something that had a piss poor margin.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, I talked to feeders like when COVID was like really bad. Just everything was shut down, right? And Cargill was in the news for all the wrong reasons early on in the pandemic. And, the plant was shut down. Like, there's two processors in Alberta, right? Like, this is the downside of consolidation, right? It's like the packers shut down. There's no place to send your cows.
Yep.
So you've got these animals who are ready to go to slaughter, and then the processors shut down. So you have no choice but to just keep feeding these animals, which literally you're just wasting money.
Yeah.
But so you're spending.
Or start butchering them yourself.
Oh yeah, I guess.
You know those BC fruit trucks you see on the side? Where it's like
throw up
BC
an abattoir.
cherries.
Yeah.
Ranchers out
Fresh
there
Alberta beef
Yeah.
trucks.
prime steaks in a
That's
freezer
it.
on the side of the highway.
That's our ticket out, guys.
Oh, I like
Alberta
the
beef trucks.
The butcher your own, like pick your own fruit. Is go out in the herd and pick your own cow.
Yeah.
Zero guys.
Out
Roadside
there
beef.
cutting them up while they're standing there in the field.
Can I have
Bring your
half
own
a bushel
shiv.
of cow?
Ship it yourself.
Most inhumane operation ever.
Yeah.
We've got these city guys out there.
Yeah.
Not
With
working.
butter knives.
Yeah, totally. He's
The
like,
gas
"Yeah,
is just
don't-"
coming out.
Yeah.
When I was younger, we had family friends that were farming. They had older John Deere equipment, and they couldn't afford the new implementation cost to get to this new stuff. So they converted all of their property, which was not enough, but all of it to ranching. And ever since then, it's just been, like you said, the cutting edge of everything. They weren't making it in the farming world, and now they're really not making it in the ranching world with the tight margins that you have on cows. But what is the margin on a cow? Do you have any idea? Like,
You know what?
we were guessing, and like when we were chatting just between ourselves, it was you're going to make like $100 on a cow. And so,
Like as the rancher.
as the rancher, yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think. Yeah, you're right. I don't think it's great.
I just like if you sell a cow for $2,000 and your input costs are $1,300 plus vet bills and all the other crud, like, man, you just like there's just nothing there, and you got to keep a property running, and so you have even at 200 head of cows, that's like 20 grand.
I think like you got to do it like our neighbors, like the Smiths do, right? Where you run in like thousands of acres, 800 head, and they're grazing the whole time, and then you ship them off, and that's where your margins come with. And like I don't know anything, so Trevor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure your margins come into play there when you've got like that much
Total on scale. But how do you afford the thousands of acres unless you're lucky enough
You have to lease it.
You're
have to
leasing
lease
it from the government.
No, it wouldn't be from the government, but you would rent it from like another farmer.
Yeah, but there are government leases out there.
Yeah, like the property
Yes.
west of mine, right, is
Yeah.
county land.
Yeah.
A lot of it though would just be that you would just rent it perhaps from another landowner.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wish I could get you a number. I will get you a number on that after the fact. But it's not big. Like I want to say it's like a couple $100 a cow.
Yeah,
That sounds
it's
about
almost
right.
nothing. Like it's hard to justify the effort it took for the profit you're going to make off that animal.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and like I said, the margins. The margins are thin in commodity farming, like just your typical grain farms. But again, they are so tight in livestock production. It's unbelievable, and the supply chain is so fragile. As we saw during COVID, like any little hiccup, it is like it's only negative impacts. Everything has to pretty much be just working perfectly, going off without a hitch. And if there's any little hiccup, everyone starts to feel it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that's just a little bit bananas, though? Like everything you were just saying about like, so whether it's cows or commodity, like it's all agriculture, right? The point of it is there to feed, whether you're eating meat-based or plant-based, it's still agriculture. The point is, like, it's there to feed everyone or we all fucking starve. And if it's so fragile that if one of the cogs in the wheel is a little bit rusty, the whole system falls apart, and then your average person is paying, $7 a pound for shitty ground beef and even more for plant-based protein. Like, how are people supposed to eat if the mechanism and the industry behind eating is not supported.
Did you just black out there? Because
foolproof.
that's not the Darren that I know that just said this most intelligent thing.
It's a new year. I'm turning over a new leaf, boys.
Did you get
Coming in there with
ChatGPT?
SMRTs.
Did you get ChatGPT to write that for you?
No, it's down. I am locked out.
Believe me, I tried.
I tried to.
That's why I've been quiet the last little bit.
You know, I mean, honestly, Darren, like that's a brilliant question and topic for discussion, right? Because honestly,
Thank you.
You know, if we didn't, this is my point of view, if we didn't have these, you know, gargantuan, what we call gargantuan size feedlots, the price for ground beef would be $10, $12. Like, you know, the reason the price is even affordable in the first place is because you have a commercial size system, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I know a really great producer out by, well, I guess it's now Diamond Valley, not Black Diamond.
No.
You know, just southwest of town. I would love to buy my beef from him. I cannot afford it.
No.
And that is because I'm on a budget and he produces a very niche, high quality product. Fantastic product, great guy. I'd love to buy it from him, but I just can't. And the reality is most people can't. Like 80% of people probably can't buy that beef, right? So they have no choice but to, you know, go to Superstore or wherever and buy, you know, whatever's there. So it's like, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's really tricky because I think a lot of people would like to have more options beyond just the typical like commercial side of things. But farmers and ranchers that's a premium product, right? They need to be compensated for that.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, they have markets, they have niche markets that are established and things like that. But I think by and large, they'll always kind of be niche because not everyone can afford to buy $8 a pound, whatever. But some people can, and they like the taste of it. And it's like, hey, more power to you. You're supporting other farmers who are growing a quality product, and you're paying them what they should be paid for it.
Isn't it bonkers that
I love cabin beer, but here I am sucking on a PC Pilsner.
Yeah, so you can afford beef.
Because so I can afford beef. But
isn't it bonkers that we could buy direct from a farmer, cut out all those middlemen, and it's still more money than buying from Superstore? Like,
so only half the middlemen.
So then isn't the answer just better beef, not more of it? Just eat less beef, but eat good beef and support the guys that are, you know, sitting on that razor thin margin.
And that is a lot of people's mindset. Like, hey, you know what? I would rather eat a good filet mignon once a month than have like 3 lousy ribeyes. You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of mindset. But people want what they want, right?
That's fair.
I honestly, like, I would take 3 ribeyes because that means I get 3 ribeyes.
Bingo.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why the system exists. I have a family I got to feed, and we've had to cut most beef out of our diet just for the ludicrous cost. And it's now a steak used to be a normal thing around my place years ago, and now it's literally a treat. You're like, oh, we're having steak tonight. They're like, okay, yeah, not just chicken.
You're not even having elk steak or deer steak because we're terrible hunters. Like you're having a cauliflower steak.
There's one of the other problems with our diet. Yeah.
But isn't it sad? Like I was digging through the freezer yesterday, and I found it was like a pack. It was a single gorgeous looking ribeye, but it had gotten because I have one of those chest freezers which are fucking useless because there's just stuff at the bottom that gets destroyed, and the packaging got punctured, so it was like freezer burnt. and I was just looking at this ribeye, and basically
like a gold
like crying as if like someone I had known had just been diagnosed with stage 4. And I'm just looking at this ribeye. I'm like, this is like $30 that went into the garbage because someone threw a pack of fucking pizza pops on top of it and punctured the back.
Pizza pops. Oh, the worst food to ruin your steak is a pizza pop.
Is it?
Oh, no.
So, Trevor, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if how much you dove into this before coming on the show, but this is actually, not only are you our first guest this year, or podcast season, however we're going to frame that when it comes out.
It's got to be seasons. Otherwise,
this is our first.
We sound like a bunch of hacks.
Yeah, totally. Seasons make it sound cool, like we're achieving something.
Yeah,
This is our first
Never
guest this
achieved
season.
anything. There's so little been achieved. You have no idea.
But this is also our first episode back, so we just jumped right in. So we haven't done one this year, and we're trying out something new.
Okay.
And so we're going to do a little segment with our guests called Guests to Know You.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right.
And there's two parts. There's two parts to this. One's a little bit directed towards your field and things you know, and one is just sort of like general stuff about any of our guests that we want to know. So the first thing I want to kick it off with, and you're going to have to, put yourself out of your head cold brain here for a minute. If you were a cocktail,
is that the problem?
what kind of what cocktail would you be and why?
I could be a cocktail. My love of dairy runs very deep, and so it would be a White Russian.
Thank God. I thought you were going to say a paralyzer, and I was just going to end it.
No. If I can find a way to get like milk or cream into something, that's probably going to be a central theme to any topic.
Just full Lebowski, hey?
That was where I had even first heard of it, and then I tried it for the first time. I was like, why doesn't everyone drink these? That was sort of my first thought.
Before my advanced age kicked in and I couldn't handle like most normal foods, my wife and I used to consume massive amounts of White Russians because they're just so good.
Yeah.
Yep. I hear that one.
It's like dairy, but it takes the edge off the day, right?
Yeah, totally. Next up, name one brand in your industry or field that you think is just absolutely crushing it, and why?
Oh my goodness! The one company right now that does such a good job of, believe it or not, kind of being a relatable brand is John Deere. Their social media game, which may be a silly thing to say, it's like the blueprint of how to actually have like a human touch on something that is so sterile and a step removed from reality. And also, I think their branding is, they've got the history, but it's phenomenal branding. So I would have to say John Deere.
Lee Green.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right. I'll accept that answer.
As he Googles, what is John Deere?
Who is this guy?
Who's John? And why does he like deer so much? So this next one is called LVS. So, think of it as live, visit, or live vacation and stay the fuck away from.
Okay.
So out of all the counties in Alberta, which one would you live in? Which one would you vacation or visit? And which one would you just say, nope?
Okay.
Understanding you're a journalist and this may fuck your career. But no one listens to it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they listen to him, not to us.
I would. Okay, I would say for the live, maybe down in Lethbridge County, or can I give? Does it have to be one? Can I say two?
Sure.
You do whatever you want.
There's no rules.
Mountain View County, which sort of starts around Innisfail and then it terminates at Red Deer County, especially out to the west of that.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful on that side of Highway 2 and then going up. So
as a general statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would visit, I've never been north of Grand Prairie. I would like to visit, I can't even remember the name of the county. It's called, oh gosh.
Well, this piece is up north of GP.
I've been up to the Peace before. It's there's a couple areas. It's called a dark area. It's by Fort McMurray, and it's a designated dark space, which basically means it can't be developed, and there's no light pollution anywhere, and it's a massive provincial park. There's
Is that Wood Buffalo? You talking about Wood Buffalo area?
It might even be inside Wood Buffalo. But
it's near, I know the area you're talking about. Yeah.
This is a terrible description. But I'd love to visit there because I haven't been, and then I would absolutely stay away from Rocky View County, which surrounds Calgary.
Yes, yes.
That's Matt's playing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Oh,
Do you have? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's the biggest county in Alberta. And it's like a horseshoe around the city. It goes from Bragg Creek and then basically almost to Acme. It's ridiculous. It should be 3 counties, and it's also terrible. It's just so overdeveloped and ruined.
Eat shit, Rocky View County.
You're ruined.
Yeah.
Blown out
Which you're not.
sock of a county.
Okay, that's good. I completely concur on your Rocky View County. It's the number of people that live there don't deserve to live there, with the exception of cash. So they've bought their way into the country. They've implemented rules which have basically, for a lot of the part, destroyed the country aspect. It's now just a suburban acreage, and
and a distribution center for tons of businesses.
Right? Yes.
Oh, so gross.
Isn't that where your distillery friends are?
Who? Eau Claire?
Yeah.
No, they're the other way. They're south.
That's Rocky View still.
No,
that's
Foothills. That's Foothills.
Yes, you're right.
So they're okay.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I would say
Trevor doesn't associate with anybody in Rocky View. He knows better.
No way.
I would say Foothills is also almost as bad as Rocky View.
It's getting there.
In my same predispositions.
Right on. So the last part, I guessed to know you. Maybe we'll add sound effects. Maybe just
like the sad trombone.
It's implied.
It's just some trivia. So we've geared this a little bit towards you. The first bit's just around some rural slang, and then around some farming. So
slang.
Thinking about rural slang and use it in a sentence.
Oh boy.
What is a
This is
a
easy
rip?
for the journalist.
Yeah.
What is what?
What is a rip?
A rip. Oh boy. I would say a rip is just getting in the truck and going for a rip.
You betcha.
I would, yeah, okay.
Fucking
That
nailed
seemed too simple. I was like, is this like a technical term I don't yet know? Like,
No, this is like, we just do like ATV stuff. We're going for a rip.
all right, yeah.
I was going to put in like tear, but then I'm like, maybe we could get into birthing stuff and no one wants to talk about that.
Yeah,
So,
that's- we're in animal husbandry. We don't want to go there.
yeah. What does twist some nuts mean?
You're either going to change a tire or you're at a branding.
Oh, the
Interesting.
branding's a nice angle on it. I like that.
Yeah. That's not where we were going with that. But yeah. Okay, explain the branding one. Use it in a sentence.
Why don't you come to my branding and we'll twist some nuts?
Sold. You
Because
had me at nuts.
You're taking them off?
That poor calf.
Interesting. Okay, no, that's, yeah, all right. I'll accept that, but that's not where we were going.
Okay.
I'll give it to you in a sentence like, oh yeah, there's just some fresh snow and I got off work, so I figured I'd get in the truck and twist some nuts before I go home.
But what do the nuts represent?
Donuts.
Oh, man. You should have said it's apostrophe N-U-T-S. That would have changed my whole answer.
I forgot I was talking to the guy that knows language and writing.
Without
right.
ChatGPT.
Yeah.
What does, and use it in a sentence, what does chuchin mean?
Chuchin?
Yeah.
Oh, man. It sounds like you're going to smoke something. I've never heard this word before.
Oh, it's my favorite word.
It's Matt's word.
I had a long day at work, and the wife was really giving me the gears, so I went outside and I just started chuching for a couple hours. I don't know.
I think that
it's
works.
probably
Right
way off.
It totally works. Yeah.
Close.
That 100% works. Right on. Okay, this is testing knowledge in the field. How many acres are in a hectare?
2.46?
Holy shit.
Or 2.64?
Yeah.
2.64, yeah.
What's a clodhopper?
Isn't that a candy?
Shit, maybe.
I think he's right.
Yeah.
That
Not
is
what I was thinking, but I think
isn't
you're-
that confectionery?
No, they're like heavy work boots used by the farming community.
Yeah, they're like shoes, right?
Yeah.
Work
No,
boots kind of thing.
he wins because it is a candy.
Yeah, it is a candy too, for sure.
Okay.
And what is a harrow and what's it used for?
Sorry, say that again.
What is a harrow and what's it used for?
Well, a harrow is used in the field, and it's used to cut it up, I guess. Is that acceptable? The harrow, you go in and break up the land with your harrows, your heavy harrows, and
Yeah.
you'd see them. Well, not too much in Alberta, but you'd see them in other places.
Yep. You're breaking
not
up the
too much
land
in
or
Alberta?
you're using it on if you're running cows, you're breaking up cow shit to
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see it too much in Alberta because most farmers just fight for moisture. And so if you're ripping up your land, that would imply that you might have too much moisture, which is some farmers would, but not too often.
Oh.
they're just
it's
out there
getting-
spitting on the fields.
Oh, man.
Just all the other farmers are like, look at that motherfucker out there showing off his moisture by harrowing. What an asshole.
Oh, totally. On where your guys' properties are, people get moisture. But then it's almost like Highway 2 is a magical dividing line where once you get in to the east, it's like people would just beg. They would cut off their arm for a little bit of moisture. It's kind of crazy, actually, if you look at like weather maps and things like that.
Totally. Like
Yeah,
the
we-
microclimates and everything, even
Oh,
within
big time.
a county itself is bananas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you won at Guess to Know You, so
Awesome.
Congratulations.
I mean,
How
you
did
didn't
you come up with the phrase "guess to know you"? Is that a pun that I'm not understanding because of my head cold?
It's get to know you, but
yeah,
guess.
get to know you, but guessed to know you.
Okay, yep. Didn't.
It's just like a real bad dad pun.
Hey, I am
Probably
a
going
dad.
to change that now because of
I am
the
a dad, so I'm going to have to add that to my repertoire. I'll see if my kids get that one tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. This has been
Yeah, man.
awesome.
It's good to see you again, too. It's been a while. So
Absolutely, and it's nice to meet you guys, Matt and Darren, and
Pleasure.
hopefully I didn't just tell blatant lies for an hour and no one's the wiser.
We'll never know.
Nobody wise listens to this. I promise.
Nobody will ever know.
It's good.
Also, Matt, I meant to ask, like, are you broadcasting from like inside a yurt? Like, where are you?
It's my ghetto basement. So you're looking at my wall, and I just
This
have,
might be the intro clip to the episode. Are you broadcasting from a fucking yurt?
Yep, it's my yurt, and I'm surrounded by skins and my furred animals that I've cleaned. So
Okay, it's almost 11 o'clock. We got to wrap this up. I got to go.
Yeah.
yeah, Trev's fallen asleep. I've gone out of focus, and
Yeah. Wheels are falling off.
We're way over budget here.
Way over budget. Trevor, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, my pleasure.
Been,
Yeah, man.
insightful and incredible.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time and your knowledge and your insight.
Yeah.
Hey, no problem.
It's great to see you, man.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
So long.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take
Thanks,
care,
Paul.
guys. Bye.
okay, bye.
That guy's a gem.
I did not know he was in Calgary. I thought he moved out to where he was working. I guess when he had that rural newspaper job, I just never really kept up with him.
Real insight into like the agriculture community. I feel.
Yeah, he's actually working in it.
Yeah. Which I think it maybe is something we were missing, which is good. Like we've got a little bit of grounding there. Good first episode back. If you were listening, which nobody was, thank you. And stay tuned for more cool people. And as usual, friends,
Keep chooching.
keep on chooching.
Hey, nobody. Don't forget to check out mutteringpines.com for our line of apparel and follow us on social and anywhere you listen to or watch your favorite podcasts. And remember, keep on chooching.